Oh, yeah, there's the live thing. Okay. So, for those of you who might be watching this in the future on YouTube, we are continuing with the Nausicaa section of Ulysses. And specifically, it's in Wordsworth on page 328 at the top. And with that, we will begin the reading.
Her words rang out crystal clear, more musical than the cooing of the ringdove, but they cut the silence icily. It was that in her young voice that told her she was not one to be lightly trifled with. As for Mr. Reggie with his swank and his bit of money, she could just chuck him aside, as if he was so much filth, and never again would she cast as much as a second thought on him and tear his silly postcard into a dozen pieces. And if ever after he dared to presume, she could give him one look of measured scorn that would make him shrivel up on the spot. Miss Puny little Edie's countenance fell to no slight extent, and Gertie could see by her looking as black as thunder that she was simply in a towering rage, though she hid it, the little kinnet, because that shaft had struck home for her petty jealousy, and they both knew that she was something aloof, apart, in another sphere, that she was not of them and never would be, and there was somebody else too that knew it and saw it, so they could put that in their pipe and smoke it. Edie straightened up baby Boardman to get ready to go, and Sissy tucked in the ball and the spades and the buckets, and it was high time too, because the Sandman was on his way for Master Boardman Jr. And Sissy told him too that Billy Winks was coming, and that baby was to go dee-dah, and baby looked just too ducky, laughing up out of his gleeful eyes, and Sissy poked him like that out of fun in his wee fat tummy, and baby, without as much as by your leave, sent up his compliments to all and sundry on to his brand new dribbling bib. Oh my, puddiny pie, protested Sis. He has his bib destroyed. The slight contretemps claimed her attention, but in two twos she set that little matter to rights. Gertie stifled a smothered exclamation and gave a nervous cough, and Edie asked, what? And she was just going to tell her to catch it while it was flying, but she was ever ladylike in her deportment, so she simply passed it off with consummate tact by saying that that was the benediction, because just then the bell rang out from the steeple over the quiet seashore, because Canon O'Hanlon was up on the altar with the veil that Father Conroy put round his shoulders, giving the little benediction with the Blessed Sacrament in his hands. Next, please.
How moving the scene there, in the gathering twilight, the last glimpse of Erin, the touching chime of those evening bells, and at the same time a bat flew forth from the ivied belfry through the dusk, hither, thither, with a tidy lost cry. And she could see far away the lights of the lighthouses, so picturesque she would have loved to do with a box of paints, because it was easier than to make a man. And soon the lamplighter would be going his rounds past the Presbyterian church grounds and along by shady Tritonville Avenue, where the couples walked, and lighting the lamp near her window, where Reggie Wilde used to turn his free will, like she read in that book, The Lamplighter by Miss Cummins, author of Mabel Vaughan and other tales. For Gertie had her dreams that no one knew of. She loved to read poetry, and when she got a keepsake from Bertha Supple of that lovely confession album with a coral pink cover to write her thoughts in, she laid it in a drawer of her toilet table, which, though it did not err on the side of luxury, was scrupulously neat and clean. It was there she kept her girlish treasure trove, the tortoiseshell combs, her childhood Mary badge, the white rose set, the eyebrow line, her alabaster pouncet box, and the ribbons to change when the things came home from the wash. And there were some beautiful thoughts written in it in violet ink that she bought in Healy's of Dame Street, for she felt that she too could write poetry if she could only express herself like that poem she appealed to her, that appealed to her so deeply that she had copied out of a newspaper she found one evening around the Potterbs. Art Thou Real, My Ideal, it was called by Louis J. Walsh, Magherfelt. And after there was something about twilight, wilt thou ever, and oft times the beauty of poetry, so sad in its transient loveliness, had misted her eyes with silent tears, for she felt that the years were slipping by for her, one by one, and for that one shortcoming, she knew she need fear no competition. And that was an accident coming down Darky Hill, and she always tried to conceal it. But it must end, she felt. If she saw the magic lure of his eyes, there would be no holding back for her. Love laughs at locksmiths. She would make the great sacrifice. Her every effort would be to share his thoughts. Dearer than the whole world would she be to him, and gild his days with happiness. There was the all-important question. She was dying to know. Was he a married man or a widower who had lost his wife? Or some tragedy like the nobleman with a foreign name from the land of song had to have her put into a madhouse, ruled only to be kind. But even if, what then? Would it make a great difference? Everything in the least indelicate, her fine-bred nature instinctively recoiled. She loathed that sort of person, the fallen women off the accommodation walk beside the Dada, that went with the soldiers and coarse men with no respect for a girl's honor, degrading the sex and being taken up by the police station. Oh, no, not that. They would be just good friends, like a big brother and sister, without all that other, in spite of the conventions of society with a big S. Perhaps it was an old flame he was in mourning for, from the days beyond recall. She thought she understood. She would try to understand them because men were so different. The old love was waiting, waiting, with little white hands stretched out, with blue, appealing eyes. Heart of mine, she would follow, a dream of love, the dictates of her heart that told her he was her all in all, the only man in all the world for her, for love was the master guide. Nothing else mattered. Come what might, she would be wild, untrammeled, free. Next.
Helen O'Hanlon put the Blessed Sacrament back into the tabernacle, and the choir sang Laude Dominum, Omnes Gentes, and then he locked the tabernacle door because the benediction was over, and Father Conroy handed him his hat to put on, and Crosscat Eddie asked wasn't she coming, but Jackie Caffrey called out, "Oh, look, Sissy!" And they all looked. Was it sheet lightning? But Tommy saw it too over the trees beside the church, blue and then green and purple. "It's fireworks," Sissy Caffrey said. And they all ran down the strand to see over the houses and the church, helter-skelter, Edie with the push car and the baby board men in it, and Sissy holding Tommy and Jackie by the hand so they wouldn't fall running. "Come on, Jerry! Come on, Gertie!" Sissy called. "It's the bazaar fireworks." But Gertie was adamant. She had no intention of being at their beck and call. If they could run like roses, she could sit though she said she could see from where she was. The eyes that were fastened upon her set her pulses tingling. She looked at him for a moment, meeting his glance, and light broke in upon her. White-hot passion was in that face, passion silent as the grave, and it had made her his. At last they were left alone, without the others to pry and pass remarks, and she knew he would be trusted to the death, steadfast, a sterling man, a man of inflexible honour to his fingertips. His hands and face were working, and a tremor went over her. She leaned back, far to look up where the fireworks were, and she caught her knee in her hand so as not to fall back, holding up, and there was no one to see, only him and her, when she revealed all her graceful, beautifully shaped legs. Like that, supple, soft, and delicately rounded. And she seemed to hear the panting of his heart, his hoarse breathing, because she knew about the passion of men like that, hot-blooded, because Bertha Supple told her once in a dead secret and made her swear she'd never the gentleman lodger that was staying with them out in the congested districts board that had pictures cut out of papers of those skirt dancers and high kickers, and she said she used to do something not very nice that you could imagine sometimes in the bed. But this was altogether different from a thing like that, because there was all the difference, because she could almost feel him draw her face to his, and the first quick hot touch of his handsome lips. Besides, there was absolution so long as you didn't do the other thing before being married. And there ought to be women priests that could understand without your telling out. And Sissy Caffrey too sometimes had that dreamy look in her eyes, so that she too, my dear, and Willie Rippingham, so mad about actors' photographs and decided it was on account that other thing coming on the way it did. Next, please.
Becky Caffrey shouted to look. There was another, and she leaned back, and the garters were blue to match on account of the transparent. And they all saw it, and they all shouted to look, look, there it was. And she leaned back ever so far to see the fireworks. And something queer was flying through the air, soft thing, to and fro, dark. And she saw a long Roman candle going up over the trees, up, up, and in the tense hush, they were all breathless with excitement as it went, excuse me, as it went higher and higher, and she had to lean back more and more to look after it. High, high, almost out of sight, and her face was suffused with a divine and entrancing blush from straining back, and he could see her other things too. Nain soup knickers, the fabric that caresses the skin, better than those petty with the green 4 and 11, on account of being white, and she let him, and she saw that he saw. And then it went so high it went out of sight a moment, and she was trembling in every limb from being bent so far back that he had a full view high up above her knee, where no one ever, not even on the swing or wading, and she wasn't ashamed, and he wasn't either, to look in that immodest way like that, because he couldn't resist the sight of the wondrous revealment half offered like those skirt dancers, behaving so immodest before gentlemen, looking, and he kept on looking, looking. She would fain have cried to him chokingly, held out her snowy, slender arms to him to come, to feel his lips laid on her white brow, the cry of a young girl's love, a little strangled cry wrung from her, that cry that has sung through the ages, that has rung through the ages. And then a rocket sprang and banged, shot blind blank, and then, oh, then the Roman candle burst. And it was like a sigh of, oh, and everyone cried, oh, oh, in raptures, and it gushed out of it a stream of rain gold hair threads, and they shed, and they were all dewy green stars falling with golden, oh, so lovely, oh, soft, sweet, soft. Then all melted away jewelly in the grey air, all silent. She glanced at him as she bent forward quickly, a pathetic little glance of piteous protest, of shy reproach, under which he coloured like a girl. He was leaning back against the rock behind. Leopold Bloom, for it is he, stands silent, with bowed head before those young, guileless eyes. What a brute he had been! At it again? A fair, unsullied soul had called to him, and wretch that he was, how had he answered? An utter cad he had been, he of all men. But there was an infinite store of mercy in those eyes. For him too, a word of pardon, even though he had erred and sinned and wandered. Should a girl tell? No, 1,000 times no. That was their secret, only theirs alone in the hiding twilight, and there was none to know or tell, save the little bat. Go softly through the evening, to and fro, and little bats don't tell. Next, please.
Sissy Caffrey whistled, imitating the boys in the football field to show what a great person she was. And then she cried, Gertie, Gertie, we're going. Come on. We can see from further up. Gertie had an idea, one of love's little ruses. She slipped a hand into her kerchief pocket and took out the wadding and waved in reply, of course, without letting him, and then slipped it back. Wonder if he's too far to... She rose. Was it goodbye? No. She had to go, but they would meet again there. And she would dream of that till then, tomorrow, of her dream of yestereve. She drew herself up to full height. Their souls met in a last lingering glance, and the eyes that reached her heart, full of strange shining, hung enraptured on her sweet flower-like face. She half smiled at him wanly, a sweet, forgiving smile, a smile that verged on tears, and then they parted. Slowly, without looking back, she went down the uneven strand to Sissy, to Edie, to Jackie and Tommy Caffrey, to little baby Borden. It was darker now, and there were stones and bits of wood on the strand and slippery seaweed. She walked with a certain quiet dignity characteristic of her, but with care, and very slowly, because Gertie McDowell was... Tight boots? Oh, she's lame. Oh. Mr. Bloom watched her as she limped away. Poor girl. That's why she's left on the shelf and the others did a sprint. Thought something was wrong by the cut of her jib. Jilted beauty. A defect is 10 times worse in a woman, but makes them polite. Glad I didn't know it when she was on show. Hot little devil all the same. Wouldn't mind. Curiosity like a nun or negress or a girl with glasses. That squinty one is delicate. Near her monthlies, I expect. Makes them feel ticklish. I have such a bad headache today. Where did I put the letter? Yes, all right. All kinds of crazy longings. Licking pennies. Girl in Tranquilla Convent, that nun told me liked to smell rock oil. Virgins go mad in the end, I suppose. Sister, how many women in Dublin have it today? Martha, she, something in the air. That's the moon. Then why don't all women menstruate at the same time with the same moon? I mean, depends on the time they were born, I suppose. Or all start scratch, then get out of step. Sometimes Molly and Millie together. Anyhow, I got the best of that. Damn glad I didn't do it in the bath this morning over her silly "I will punish you" letter. Made up for that tram driver this morning. That gouger McCoy stopping me to say nothing, and his wife engagement and the country valise, voice like a pickaxe. Thankful for small mercies, cheap too, yours for the asking. Because they want it themselves, their natural craving. Shoals of them every evening poured out of offices, reserved better. Don't want it, they throw it at you. Catch them alive. Ah, pity they can't see themselves. A dream of well-filled hose. Where was that? Oh yeah, Mutoscope pictures in Capel Street for men only, Peeping Tom. Willie's hat and what the girls did with it. Did they snapshot those girls or was it all fake? Lingerie does it. Felt for the curves inside her dishabille. Excites them also when they're, I'm all clean come and dirty me. They like dressing one another for the sacrifice. Next, please.
Millie delighted with Molly's new blouse at first. Put them all on to take them all off. Molly, why I bought her the violet garters. Us too, the tie he wore. His lovely socks and turned-up trousers. He wore a pair of gaiters, the night that first we met. His lovely shirt was shining beneath his what? Of jet. Say, a woman loses a charm with every pin she takes out. Pinned together. Oh, Mary lost the pin of her. Dressed up to the nines for somebody. Fashion part of their charm. Just changes when you're on the track of the secret, except the East. Mary, Martha, now as then. No reasonable offer refused. Wasn't in a hurry either. Always off to a fellow when they are. They never forget an appointment. Out on spec, probably. They believe in chance because, like themselves. And the others inclined to give her an odd dig. Girlfriends at school, arms round each other's necks, or with 10 fingers locked, kissing and whispering secrets about nothing in the convent garden. Nuns with whitewashed faces, cool quiff, and the rosaries going up and down. Vindictive too, for they can't get. Barbed wire. Be sure now and write to me. And I'll write to you. Now won't you? Molly and Josie Powell. Till Mr. Right comes along, then meet once in a blue moon. Tableau. Oh, look. It is, for the love of God, how are you at all? What have you been doing with yourself? Kiss and delighted to kiss to see you. Picking holes in each other's appearance. You're looking splendid. Sister souls showing their teeth at one another. How many of you left? Wouldn't lend each other a pinch of salt. Ah, devils they are when that's coming on them. Dark, devilish appearance. Molly often told me things, I feel things a ton weight. Scratch the sole of my foot. Oh, that way. Oh, that's exquisite. Feel it myself too. Good to rest once in a way. Wonder if it's bad to go with them then. Safe in one way. Turns milk. Makes fiddle strings snap. Something about withering plants I read in the garden. Besides, they say if the flower withers she wears, she's a flirt. All are. Dare say she felt I. When you feel like that, you often meet what you feel. Like to me or what? Dress they look at. Always know fellows courting collars and cuffs. Well, cocks and lions do the same, and stags. Same time, might prefer a tie undone or something. Trousers? Suppose when I was, no, gently does it, dislike rough and tumble. Kiss in the dark and never tell. Saw something in me. Wonder what? Sooner have me as I am than some poet chap with bear's grease, plastery hair, lovelock over his dexter optic. To age gentleman in literary. Ought to attend to my appearance, my age. Didn't let her see me in profile. Still, you never know. Pretty girls and ugly men marrying. Beauty and the Beast. Besides, I can't be so if Molly took off her hat to show her hair. Wide brim brought to hide her face. Meeting someone might know her. Bend down to carry a bunch of flowers to smell. Hair strung in rut. 10 bob I got from Molly's combings when we were on the rocks in Hollis Street. Why not? Suppose he gave her money. Why not? All a prejudice. She's worth 10, 15, more a pound. What? I think so. All that for nothing. Oh, Mrs. Marion. Did I forget to write address on that letter, like the postcard I sent to Flynn? And the day I went to Drimmy's without a necktie, wrangle with Molly, it was, put me off. No, I remember. Richie Goulding, he's another. Weighs on his mind. Funny, my watch stopped at 4:30. Dust. Shark liver oil they use to clean. Could do it myself. Save. Was that just when she, David?
I'm wondering if it's worth stopping here to do a bit of discussing, because we've passed the transition point
Yes.
in a fairly interesting paragraph, and I wonder if we could maybe go back. Before I do, could I just ask somebody to give me a quick comment? Richie Goulding, he's another. Can you help me with that? Another what?
Richie Goulding said, I went to Jimmy's without a necktie, wrangle with Molly. It was, put me off. No, I remember. Richie Goulding, he's another, weighs on his mind. Huh.
I have always, now this is only me, I haven't never read a commentary on it, but I've always thought that Richie has a sort of a marriage issue of some sort.
Okay, I'm wondering about that too. So maybe he's been cuckolded, as Bloom has just been.
Yeah, okay. Richie is that little bit older and like I am, sort of thing. You know, he's another like me type of thing. But there could be some vast undercurrent there that has yet to be detected.
Right. Okay.
And maybe that's why they ate at the same table when they went into.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know if it's worth mentioning, but you know, Richie Goulding, like the midwives, carries a bag around. What that means, I don't know. But I mean, you know, it is true that every time that Joyce talks about Richie Goulding, he mentions his cost. I think it's called a cost bag.
Yeah.
Which is the
Yeah, Joe, because the context certainly is Bloom's marital issues, isn't it? You know, his clock is stopped, his watch is stopped just at 4:30. Yeah. Was that just when she?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. That makes a lot of sense.
And his watch stopped, and that and Mrs. Marion, you know, it's Mrs. Leopold.
Right.
He's
yeah, except that that's delusional, I think. I mean, if I'm correct, Boylan actually arrived. Boylan was supposed to arrive at 4, and he was late.
Yeah.
Okay, so the time the watch stopped was certainly not. You know, it was not the other climax, shall we say?
Yes. Yeah.
But there is
a note out here which might explain about the bag. Joyce modeled Stephen's uncle Richie and Aunt Sarah Goulding on his mother's brother William Murray and William's wife Josephine Giltrap Murray. Richie Goulding works as a cost drawer or cost accountant, a position that involves scrutinizing the costs of a business to improve its management, in a firm of Dublin solicitors called Collis and Ward. In Proteus, Stephen thinks of him doing his paperwork at home in the morning. Wandering Rocks shows Goulding moving about town with these cost bag of work papers. In Sirens, he joins Bloom for an early supper in the Ormond Hotel dining room. So that's his bag. He's carrying his work papers around it.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some historical family reference there to that would be put me right, someone who knows it better than I do, isn't he the James Joyce's uncle?
Mhm.
And
he's part of.
Family joke there about the ghost bag.
Well, this is reaching on my part, but the cost bag. The guy is a forensic accountant. If I'm catching things.
He's just the internal accountant.
He's the internal accountant, but he's supposed to be tallying things carefully.
Yeah, he'd be saying, "Listen, Duncan, you've clocked up 800 hours on that case. We need a fee from them." That's the job. All the professional firms have an internal accountant, but he wouldn't be forensic. He wouldn't be part of a team. That sort of thing. He's just the guy saying, "Listen, you're running up too much. We only get 1,000 a year out of that crowd. You can't spend a week on it." That's sort of it's a kind of form of low life in the accountancy profession, to be honest with you.
The other people would not have smiled upon him, I would not think.
Oh, yeah. You get the call from the internal accountant, and he's got your timesheets for the last 6 months, and you've been burying time. He's the guy who sort of says, "Listen, did you really need to clock that time up on that case, or are you spinning your wheel there and just using it?" Everyone in a professional firm knows where you've always got these hours you haven't worked on anyone's case, and you need a home for the hours. So, self-paced.
Well, the impression that I get, Joyce's father did not like Joyce's mother's family.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, and I would think that part of that, and I'm admittedly reaching here, is that Richie Golding, whoever Richie Golding is a stand-in for, is a person who by nature pays attention to things. And he would know that Simon, or that Father Joyce is not handling his funds correctly.
Yes.
He would be like a neutral eye, or maybe not even a neutral eye, but he would be a slightly professional eye looking at what's going on, and would probably have things to say, probably not directly to John Joyce himself, but certainly to his family, and it would probably leak over to May Joyce. So that would cause some tension.
It doesn't help that there are 9 Gouldings in this book. But it is interesting that if you go, there's a little street called Cabastle Street in Dublin, where on the corner of which, almost on the corner of which, was the parental home of Joyce's mother. And on that street, there are 4 Joyce significant buildings, one being that one. And across the road from that is Goulding, the fictitious character.
Mm-hmm.
To the right of that, about 10 houses up, there's the real historical house where John Joyce rented accommodation. He was wooing Joyce's mother to the absolute horror of her parents and family, because they didn't like him. And across the road from that, I suppose, bedroom or room, is the fictitious birthplace of Leopold Bloom. So you have 4 buildings along that road, 2 and 2 fictional out of Odysseus, and the 2 and they stare at each other, the buildings.
And that was on 10 Brussels Street.
Yeah, Cabas Street, between Cabas Street and what do you call House Cross Bridge.
Okay.
You find there's a plaque on the house to say this is the birthplace of Leopold Bloom, you know. But there's no plaques on the other three. You just have to find those for yourself. But you can stand on that little humpback bridge and look at that road, and it's like looking inside Joyce's head. You know, the symmetry of it, how he has placed. But he's placed this building forever overlooking the family of his grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say the bag has something to do with it. Don't ask me what.
The thing that I continually find fascinating, particularly in Nausicaa, is all of the subjectivity. And that once again, we have Gertie McDowell, and everything that's going through her head is she's kind of channeling books. It's almost like Don Quixote, only she's doing the romantic version of Don Quixote, where she's read all these magazines and all these books. And so all of her thoughts are just kind of repetitions and variations on these themes. And kind of the same thing is going on in Leopold Bloom's head, too. Because he's a little older, he understands that I think he understands that he's letting his imagination run riot a little bit. I think Gertie is so young and so naive, she does not understand at all how she's being played by these forces around her.
Yeah.
The styles, the magazines, and she's just continually floating through all these emotions.
Yes.
On just to stay with Gertie, Lois, you read I think right after I did, and Donna and Jim were after that. Like me, did you find the reading difficult? Because for me, the words there's very little punctuation there, so there aren't commas to tell you to take your pauses, and I just found that the words went crashing into each other, and so I think it's in Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. I knew not my stops. I didn't know where to pause there. Were you finding the same difficulty, or was it just me?
No, I agree with you, Dave. Yeah, there was no punctuation, and sometimes I thought, my God, I've made a mistake.
Right.
I didn't find it when I read. I think the breaths were sort of built into it.
Okay.
The time to take a breath seemed to be natural.
Okay.
And much of this is in Gertie's head.
Right. Yes. Sorry. As I was reading, thank you. That's a very good point. Because as I was reading and encountering the difficulty, I was thinking, of course, because it's in her head, and so these things are kind of crashing into each other. It's in a sense, it's like the Penelope chapter. Where you wish that there would be the odd comma or two, so that you could just kind of pause and collect your thoughts a little bit. So yes, but that's right, because it's in her head. It's all rushing together.
I have a tendency to read quickly, and yet this particular time it was like I was automatically slowed down. The words seem to be requiring slowness and to appreciate each word.
Very interesting.
Particularly in the section that I rang, it was interspersed with lots of O's and A's and different types of O's, which bears out Lewis's point about taking the breath. The breath stops all the way through it, even if you don't have commas or full stops.
Right.
Did you, by any chance, recall Molly's yeses when you encountered these O's?
Yes, very much so. Because I heard that section read in the James Joyce Centre quite recently. I can't remember the lady's name, but she really sort of emphasized those yeses and all the way through that Penelope section, that final section. And I think it's very like that here as well. I agree.
Mhm.
It even sounds the same when you read it out loud.
Yeah.
There's another process going on that links or, parallels with that, is that the distinction between the narrator and Gertie MacDowell's inner monologue is blurring. And some commentators speak of the narrator begins to be infected by the character's thought processes. And that's that is definitely there. You see it, Mr. Bloom watched her as she limped away. Now that's pure narrator.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Poor girl, exclamation mark. Now we're inside his head. The two are mixed. That's why she's left on herself. And this goes to the spin. Then the mad, crazy thoughts begin to pour. And so some people speak of, at this point, the characters are taking over the narration themselves. The characters are starting to write the book. Get carried away with those ideas very easily. And that adds to that feeling that it's kind of, it feels like a punctuation difficulty. Parallels.
Sorry, Joe, doesn't it go back to the whole stream of consciousness thing? We've two characters doing this. We have Bloom doing it, we have Stephen Dedalus doing it.
Right.
I'm not sure whether the characters are taking over the book, but there are multiple narrators, and you've highlighted there, Mr. Bloom watched her as she limped away.
Oh, yeah.
And then practically to the end of this episode, we're in Bloom's head, where he's thinking thoughts, profound or otherwise,
And we've previously been inside Gertie's head.
Yes.
That boundary, that crossing point where, oh, she's lame, and that then we begin to hear the tale told from a somewhat less romantic point of view.
Well, especially, if I may be so bold, the sexual tension is over.
Yeah.
Up to this particular point, one of the things I think that is lending so much subjectivity to it is that both Leopold Bloom and Gertie are feeling a sexual tension.
Yes.
And after Bloom's climax and Gertie's kind of climax, their mentality becomes less subjective in a sense. And so they're
cigarette in the bed.
Excuse me?
It's time for relaxing and smoking the cigarette in the bed.
Yeah, I'm coming back down to earth, right? And dealing with practicalities.
It's like the fireworks beginning to fall, all greeny, dewy stars falling with golden, oh, so lovely, oh, soft, oh, so soft, sweet, soft. Like the fireworks on their way up signal the change, and then falling down. And that paragraph some male readers read that with the same sort of energy as the girls rolling around the floor shouting yes, 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 and sort of in Sweeney's on Bloom's Day, and it can be done like that.
Yeah, I've seen some television programs for the intimate moment. They switch to fireworks.
Yes, and as does Joyce. You see, that's what go up. You see, they start. Oh, look!
It's a famous usage in To Catch a Thief with Cary Grant when they have their sex, the camera goes outdoors to the sky and you watch the fireworks going off.
What film is that, Lois?
To Catch a Thief with Grace
Okay.
Kelly and Cary Grant.
Okay.
Well, I think in both cases, in politics, one of the essences of our current politics is that we have large groups of people in a hugely subjective, diluted stage. Okay, which I will reach a little bit, which is not unlike what happens in individuals when they're in a sexual tension, where they're projecting all kinds of things on another person. But after the climax, the nice thing about sex is it's relatively innocent. Okay. And after the climax, people come back down to earth, and there's a little denouement, where she has to talk about meeting him the next day, and and continuing on that kind of subjective pleasantry, which of course she's not going to meet him the next day. And politics, unfortunately, it usually means some sort of massive violent act, which, when that happens, suddenly the parties involved go, oh, wait a minute. I thought I was going to reform society, and here I've been part of a huge disaster. And everybody sobers up for a while. So I just throw that out there.
Well, I'm still waiting for us to get sober.
Yeah, I was about to ask that question, Duncan. When is the sobriety going to happen? Or have we had a brief period of it?
Yeah, I don't know. That actually depends upon the depth of the delusion. And I don't know about you, but I mean, in spite of the fact that someone that we know won the nomination, I think that clip on the ear is bringing a little, he's beginning to wonder if he should. Just a little bit, Lois.
He's not on the road to Damascus yet.
No.
Not on the road to Damascus, but I would say this is an early sign of which, unfortunately, will probably take too long to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anyway, I don't want to carry on too much about that, but
Anyway, he's got a new St. Paul with him anyway.
A new St. Paul.
Yeah.
That's very harsh on St. Paul, Jim.
Huh?
That's very harsh on St. Paul.
I think it's more like Sancho Panza.
Yeah. That's a good description.
Who's like Sancho Panza?
His sidekick.
Oh, the sidekick.
Yeah. J.R. Ewing.
So in terms of moving to the climax and beyond, in terms of style, I'm just looking here and okay, so why is it different? And if you look at Bloom's sort of post-orgasmic narration, or the narrator moving through Bloom, there's quite a bit of punctuation. It slows you down. So on our way up, you can't see, sorry, on our way up, the words are tumbling into each other. At least they were for Jim and me. But after that's happened, when you have that, kind of flaccid, flabby period, to call it what you want, lots of punctuation in those paragraphs.
Yes.
It's very different. And so So, Joe, I think that talks to your point about that union between the narrator and the character.
Yeah, it's almost like two episodes, you know.
It is.
So
Yeah.
distinctly different.
They are. Yeah, right. There's that sort of whimsical, not whimsical, but there's that romanticism, hopeful, optimistic romanticism of Gertie, and the sort of more earthy look at things by Bloom afterwards.
The old India hand, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
A few times, you know. Thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely. And of course, he was being completely silent throughout.
Yeah.
Gertie's part, and she, I think, is completely silent throughout and then they just briefly have a little bit of a eye exchange at the end.
They do. And another group I was in that looks at this, actually, we spent a bit of time, and it's not a resolvable problem, looking at the descent of darkness and how, like, was it possible that this would work, that you got fireworks going off, but they can seem to read each other a little bit at the same time. And it was sort of left as a question. I do have a note. Where was this? I did make a note somewhere. I'll look and find it when sunset occurred at that time.
You have to allow that there was no summertime adjustment in 1909.
And right.
But that you know, that's the opening words. The summer evening had begun to fold the world in its mysterious embrace.
Right.
You see that he starts to that far away in the west, the sun was setting, and the last glow of all too fleeting day lingered lovingly on the sea and strand. So if you've ever been there, you can see that you have the view of the sun going down, and it's and you know it's still lighter at the start of Gertie, and it's just darker when Mr. Bloom in his dark clothes, his dark takes over.
But you've got the fireworks lighting things up.
Yeah, but they're not a lamp that you have on your bicycle. You know, they're up in the sky and they're quite far away, a couple of 100 yards away. You wouldn't read the newspaper by them, I'd say.
No, you wouldn't read the newspaper about, but you would get flashes of illumination.
Oh, yeah,
it's almost like a strobe. It's almost like a strobe type thing.
Oh yeah,
Or at least that's how I envision this scene happening. Is it's illuminated by the fireworks sporadically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good
the characters would just be flashing as at the very end. They just catch each other, glimpses of each other almost. Yeah. So I think that the bat is very important.
The bat is very important. Yes.
The bats don't tell.
Yeah, you know, a little bird told me. You know that sort of phrase. Your mother might have. You know. How did you know? Oh, a little bird told me you were fighting with two boys down the road. Sort of, you know, that's. But the chiasmus between. Sorry, I think I'm repeating myself from last week or the week before. The chiasmus between sight and sound, Bat and Bloom. Gertie and Bloom have no sound, but they have sight, and the bat has no sight. He works off sound, and you get the two crossing over each other just at the crossover from one character to the other.
I would add one more point. I was being a child of the 60s, and that being the time of the psychedelic emporiums, where you would have a combination of rock and roll and light shows and strobe lights. And the emotional effect of the music and then the lights flashing, you know, bright, dark, bright, dark, bright, dark, you know, definitely lended itself to a very, I don't know if profound is the word to use, strong experience.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even now, this is like, God, believe it or not, 50 years later, I can close my eyes. I can see certain concerts in small halls with strobe lights going.
Yeah, the psychedelic experience, you know,
Mhm.
it's
You could
advertised.
also see the girls' underwear when those strobe lights came on. Did you experience that?
Did I experience that? Well, first of all, the girls didn't have much clothes on to begin with.
Oh,
And
well,
wear
Um,
underwear.
in Ireland it was different.
okay, shall we do a little bit more reading?
Yeah, where did we leave off?
The
Page
last,
Oh, half past
334.
All right.
Line 850.
Well, yeah, I got it. Okay. Mr. Bloom, with careful hand, recomposed his wet shirt. Oh, Lord.
did you read?
You know what, Lois? If you want to read, I'll just change your. I'll just come in after you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
No,
you had just
it's
read.
all good. No, it's
No,
all
you
good.
were
You've already
just
started.
talking. No, you were just talking, not reading. So go read.
Okay. I don't mind. Okay. All right.
No, I
Okay.
was confused.
Okay. Mr. Bloom, with careful hand, recomposed his wet shirt. Lord, that little limping devil begins to feel cold and clammy. After effect, not pleasant. Still, you have to get rid of it some way. They don't care. Complimented, perhaps. Go home to nicey bread and milky and say night prayers with the kiddies. Well, aren't they? See her as she is, spoil all. Must have the stage setting, the rouge, costume, position, music, the name too. Amours of actresses, Nell Gwynn, Miss Bracegirdle, Maud Branscombe, curtain up, moonlight silver effulgence, maiden discovered with pensive bosom, little sweetheart, come and kiss me. Still, I feel the strength it gives a man. That's the secret of it. Good job. I let off there behind the wall, coming out of Dignam's. Cider, that was. Otherwise, I couldn't have. Makes you want to sing after. La coas essent terra terra. Suppose I spoke to her. What about? Bad plan, however, if you don't know how to end the conversation. Ask them a question, they ask you another. Good idea if you're stuck. Gain time. But then you're in a cart. Wonderful, of course, if you say good evening and you see she's on for it. Good evening. But the dark evening in the Appian way, I nearly spoke to Mrs. Clinch, thinking she was. Girl in Meath Street that night. All the dirty things I made her say. All wrong, of course. My arcs, she called it. It's so hard to find one who, if you don't answer when they solicit, must be horrible for them till they harden. And kiss my hand when I gave her the extra 2 shillings. Parrots. Press the button and the bird will speak. Wish you hadn't called me sir. Oh, her mouth in the dark. You a married man with a single girl. That's what they enjoy. Taking a man from another woman. Or even hear of it. Different with me. Glad to get away from other chap's wife. Eating off his cold plate. Chap in the Burton today spitting back gum-chewed gristle. French letters still in my pocketbook. Cause of half the trouble. But might happen sometime, I don't think. Come in, all is prepared. I dreamt, what? Worst is beginning. How they change the venue when it's not what they like. Ask you, do you like mushrooms? Because she once knew a gentleman who, or ask you what someone was going to say when he changed his mind and stopped. Yet if I went the whole hog, say, I want to, something like that, because I did. She too, offend her, then make it up. Pretend to want something awfully, then cry off it for her sake. Flatters them. She must have been thinking of someone else all the time. What harm? Must, since she came to the use of reason, he, and he. First kiss does the trick, the propitious moment. Something inside them goes pop. Mushy like, tell by their eye on the sly. First thoughts are best. Remember that till their dying day. Molly, Lieutenant Mulvey that kissed her under the Moorish wall beside the gardens. 15, she told me, and her breasts were developed. Fell asleep then. After Glen Cree dinner that was when we drove home, Featherbed Mountain, gnashing her teeth in sleep. Lord Mayor had his eye on her too, Val Dillon, apoplectic. Up There she is with him down there for the fireworks, my fireworks, up like a rocket, down like a stick. And the children, twins, they must be waiting for something to happen, want to be grown-ups, dressing in mother's clothes, time enough, understand all the ways of the world. And the dark one with the mop head and the end mouth. I knew where she could whistle. Mouth made for that. Like Molly. Why that high-class whore in Jamets wore her veil only to her nose. Would you mind, please, telling me the right time? I'll tell you the right time up a dark lane. Say prunes and prisms 40 times every morning. Cure for fat lips. Caressing the little boy, too. Onlookers see most of the game. Of course, they understand birds, animals, babies in their line. Lois?
Didn't look back when she was going down the Strand. Wouldn't give that satisfaction. Those girls, those lovely seaside girls. Fine eyes she had, clear. It's the white of the eye brings that out, not so much the pupil. Did she know what of course, like a cat sitting beyond a dog's jump. Women never meet one like that Wilkins in the high school drawing a picture of Venus with all his belongings on show. Call that innocence, poor idiot. His wife has her work cut out for her. Never see them sit on a bench marked wet paint. Eyes all over them. Look under the bed, what's not there. Longing to get the fright of their lives. Sharp as needles they are. When I said to Molly, the man at the corner of Cuff Street was good looking, thought she might like, twigged at once he had a false arm. Had, too. Where did they get that? Typist going up Roger Green's stairs 2 at a time to show her understandings. Handed down from father to mother to daughter. I mean, bred in the bone. Millie, for example, drying her handkerchief on the mirror to save the ironing. Best place for an ad to catch a woman's eye on a mirror. And when I sent her for Molly's Paisley shawl to Prescott's, by the way, that ad I must, carrying home the change in her stocking, clever little minx. I never told her. Neat way she carries parcels, too. Attract men, small thing like that. Holding up her hand, shaking it to let the blood flow back when it was red. Who did they learn that from? Nobody. Something the nurse taught me. Oh, don't they know? 3 years old, she was in front of Molly's dressing table, just before we left Lombard Street West. Me have a nice face? Mullingar, who knows? Ways of the world. Young student. Straight on her pins anyway, not like the other. Still, she was game. Look, I am wet. Devil you are. Swell of her calf. Transparent stockings. Stretched to breaking point. Not like that frump today. A.E. Rumpled stockings. Or the one in Grafton Street. White. Wow. Beef to the heel. A monkey puzzle rocket burst, spluttering in darting crackles. Shreds and shreds and shreds. And Sissy and Tommy and Jackie ran out to sea, and Edie after with the push car, and then Gertie beyond the curve of the rocks. Will she? Watch. See, looked around. She smelt an onion. Darling, I saw all. Lord, did me good all the same. Off color after Kiernan's dignums. This relief, much thanks. In Hamlet, that is. Lord, it was all things combined. Excitement. When she leaned back, felt an ache at the butt of my tongue. Your head in sickly swirls. He's right. I'd have made a worse fool of myself, however, instead of talking about nothing. Then I will tell you all. Still, it was a kind of language between us. It couldn't be. No. Gertie, they called her. Might be false name, however, like my name. And the address, Dolphin's Barn, a blind. Next.
Her maiden name was Jeremiah Brown, and she lived with her mother in Irishtown. Place made me think of that, I suppose. All tarred with the same brush, wiping pens in their stockings, but the ball rolled down to her as if it understood. Every bullet has its billet. Of course, I never could throw anything straight at school. Crooked like a ram's horn. Sad, however, because it only lasts a few years till they settle down to pot walloping and Papa's pants will soon fit Willie in Fuller's earth for the baby out when they told him out to do no soft job saves them, keeps them out of harm's way. Nature, washing child, washing corpse, dignum, children's hands always around them. Coconut skulls, monkeys, not even a closed first, sour milk in their swaddles and tainted curds. Ought to have given that child an empty teat to suck. Fill it up with wind. Mrs. Beaufoy purify. Must call to the hospital. Wonder at Nurse Callan there still. She used to look over some nights when Molly was in the coffee palace. That young Dr. O'Hare I noticed her brushing his coat. And Mrs. Breen and Mrs. Dignam once like that too. Marriageable. Worst of all at night, Mrs. Dignam told me in the City Arms, husband rolling in drunk, stink of pub off him like a polecat. Have that in your nose in the dark, whiff of stale booze, then ask in the morning, was I drunk last night? Whiff of stale booze. But bad policy, however, to fault the husband. Chickens come home to roost. They stick by one another like glue. Maybe the women's fault too. That's where Molly can knock spots off them. It is the blood of the South, Moorish. Also, the form, the figure, hands felt for the opulent. Just compare, for instance, those others. Wife locked up at home, skeleton in the cupboard. Allow me to introduce my... Then they trot you out, some kind of nondescript. Wouldn't know what to call her. Always see a fellow's weak point in his wife. Still, there's destiny in it, falling in love. Have their own secrets between them. Chaps that would go to the dogs if some woman didn't take them in hand. Then little chits of girls, height of a shilling in coppers, with little hubbies. As God made them, he matched them. Sometimes children turn out well enough. Twice naught makes one. Or old rich chap of 70 and blushing bride. Marry in May and repent in December. This wet is very unpleasant. Stuck. Well, the foreskin's not back. Better detach. Ooh! Other hand, a 6-footer with a whiffy up to his watch pocket. Long and the short of it, big he and little she. Very strange about my watch. Wristwatches are always going wrong. Wonder is that where any magnetic influence between the person, because that was about the time he... Yes, I suppose at once. Cats away, the mice will play. I remember looking in Pills Lane. Also, that now is magnetism. Back of everything, magnetism. Earth, for instance, pulling this and being pulled. That causes movement. And me, well, that's the time the movement takes. Then if one thing stopped, the whole gazebo would stop bit by bit. Because if it's arranged, magnetic needle tells you what's going on in the sun, the stars. Little piece of steel iron. Would you hold out a fork? Come, Tip. Woman and man, that is. Fork and steel. Molly he. Dress up and look and suggest and let you see more and defy you if you're a man to see that and like a sneeze coming. Legs, look, and if you have any guts in you, Tip. Have to let fly. Next, please.
Wonder how is she feeling in that region? Dame all put on before third person. More put out about a hole in her stocking. Molly, her underjaw stuck out, head back, about the farmer in the riding boots and spurs at the horse show. When the painters were in Lumber Street West, fine voice that fellow had. How Juglini began. Smell that I did, like flowers. Was too. Violets. Came from the turpentine, probably, in the paint. Make their own use of everything. Same time doing it, scraped her slipper on the floor so they wouldn't hear. But lots of them can't kick the beam, I think. Keep that thing up for hours. Kind of a general all round over me and half down my back. Wait. Hmm. Yes, that's her perfume. Why she waved her hand. I'd leave you to think of me when I'm far away on the pillow. What is it? Heliotrope? No. Hyacinth? Roses, I think. She'd like scent of that kind. Sweet and cheap, soon sour. Why Molly likes wax. Suits her with a little jessamine mixed. High notes and her low notes. At the dance night, she met him. Dance of the hours. He brought it out. She was wearing her black and it had the perfume of the time before. Good conductor, is it? Or bad? Light too. Suppose there's some connection. For instance, if you go into a cellar where it's dark, mysterious thing too. Why did I smell it only now? Took its time in coming like herself, slow but sure. So, suppose it's ever so many millions of tiny grains blown across. Yes, it is, because those Spice Islands, Singalese this morning, smell them leaves off. Tell you what it is. It's like a fine veil or web they have all over the skin. Fine, like what do you call it? Gossamer. And they're always spinning it out of them, fine as anything, like rainbow colors without knowing it. Clings to everything she takes off. Vamp off her stockings, warm shoe, stays, drawers, little kick taking them off. Bye bye till next time. Also, the cat likes to sniff in her shift on the bed. Know her smell in 1,000. Bath water, too, reminds me of strawberries and cream. Wonder where it is, really. There are the armpits or under the neck, because you get it out of all holes and corners. Hyacinth perfume made of oil of ether or something. Muskrat. Bag under their tails. One grain pour off odor for years. Dogs at each other behind. Good evening. Evening? How do you sniff? Yes, well, thank you. Animals go by that. Yes, now look at it that way. We're the same. We're the same. Some women, instance, warn you off when they have their period. Come near. Then let a hogo you could hang your hat on. Like what? Potted herrings gone stale or oof. Please keep off the grass. Next, please.
Perhaps they get a man smell off of us. What though? Cigarette gloves? Long John had on his desk the other. Breath? What you eat and drink gives that. No, man smell, I mean. Must be connected with that because priests that are supposed to be are different. Women buzz round it like flies round treacle. Railed off the altar, get onto it at any cost. The tree of forbidden priest. Oh, Father, will you? Let me be the first to. That diffuses itself all through the body, permeates, source of life. And it's extremely curious, the smell. Celery sauce. Let me. Mr. Bloom inserted his nose, into the, opening of his waistcoat. Almonds or, no, lemon it is. Ah, no, that's the soap. Oh, by that lotion. I knew there was something on my mind. Never went back and soap not paid. Dislike carrying bottles like that hag this morning. Hines might have paid me that 3 shillings. I could mention Meagher's just to remind him. Still, if he works that paragraph 2 and 9, that opinion of me he'll have. Call tomorrow. How much do I owe you? 3 and 9? 2 and 9, sir. Ah, might stop him giving credit another time. Lose your customers that way, pubs do. Fellow run up the hill on the slate and then slinking around the back streets into somewhere else. Next, please.
Here's this nobleman passed before, blown in from the bay. Just went as far as turned back. Always at home at dinner time. Looks mangled out. Had a good tuck in. Join nature now, Grace, after meals. After supper, walk a mile. Sure he has a small bank balance somewhere. Government sit. Walk after him now and make him awkward like those newsboys me today. Still you learn something. See ourselves as others see us. As long as women don't mock, what matter? That's the way to find out. Ask yourself, who is he now? The mystery man on the beach, prize tidbit story by Mr. Leopold Bloom, payment at the rate of 1 guinea per column. And that fellow today at the graveside in the brown Macintosh. Horns on his kismet, however. Healthy, perhaps. Absorb all the... Whistle brings rain, they say. Must be somewhere salt in the almond damp. The body feels the atmosphere. Old Betty's joints are on the rack. Mother Shipton's prophecy, that is about ships around they fly in the twinkling. No, signs of rain it is. The royal reader, and distant hills seem coming nigh. Hoth, Bailey Light, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. See, has to change. Or they might think it's a house. Wreckers, grey sterling, people afraid of the dark. Also glowworms, cyclists, lighting up time. Jewels, diamonds, flash better. Light is a kind of reassuring, not going to hurt you. Better now, of course, than long ago. Country roads run you through the small guts for nothing. Still 2 types there. Are you Bob against? Scowl or smile? Pardon, not at all. Best time to spray plants too in the shade after the sun. Some light still. Red rays are longest. Roygbiv Vance taught us red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. A star, I see. Venus? Can't tell yet. 2. When 3, it's night. Were those night clouds there all the time? Looks like a phantom ship. No, wait. Trees, are they? An optical illusion. Mirage. Land of the setting sun, this. Home rule sun setting in the southeast. My native land. Good night. That might be a spot to pause.
I think, yeah.
My native land, good night.
My
rule, my Homer Ool, my Homer-like native land. You see? Homer is in Home Rule.
Okay, we've got a few minutes, and maybe we can let ourselves go about 5 minutes over the 90-minute. Well, I'll just go ahead and say it. I mean, it didn't take Bloom long to start sailing back into radical subjectivity.
Radical subjectivity.
One thing that I missed going through this section the first few times is, in light of what happened in the Polyphemus chapter, the one-eyed guy, help me out here. Cyclops, thank you. Senior's moment. In light of what happened there, is we do find out here that Bloom has a foreskin. And so for all the discussion of whether he's Jewish or not, this chapter makes it very clear that he's uncircumcised.
Yes.
And I just think, again, that's fairly key. Joyce throws it in passing after this chapter, where this is sort of critical.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think it's very critical. I think this is among the many, many things that makes Bloom the consummate outsider.
Yeah. And it should come as no surprise, because his mother is Ellen Higgins, a Church of Ireland Christian.
Yes, that's a good point. Bloom has had a fairly interesting religious odyssey, hasn't he? We associate him with Jewishness, and that's his heritage. Because of his mother, he was Protestant, and then he converted kind of to Mary Molly.
Yes. Yeah, he's kind of three basic religions running through him, none of which he has a complete grasp of.
No, that is so true. That is the point.
And all descended from the one tradition.
Oh my God. You know, as somebody raised Catholic, when he sees INRA and he thinks it's iron nails run in.
I know, yeah. I have sinned. IHS. You know, Jesus, Hosanna, Salvator.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
By the way, if I might be permitted, I just suddenly felt the urge for this one. It's just where we finished on the last one, just before we started. Oh, he did. Did anyone, you know, he's thinking about his appearance, sooner have me as I am than some poet chap? Who could this be? With bear's grease, plastery hair, lovelock over his dexter optic. Mr. Yeats, you know. Making a cameo appearance.
What page is that, Joe?
Page 334. Just above the he did into her, she, you know, where we began.
Oh, yeah.
And my eye fell on it when I should be reading the new part.
So has anybody done a book on all the things that Leopold Bloom gets wrong?
Not that I know.
It would be a weighty volume.
It would be huge, yeah.
Yes.
Like, that's the point in that he gets, and like that is the way humans live. We do not have full knowledge of anything. Think of a you know. You know, why do fingernails grow? Well, no one knows, you know. Like they have all sorts of, they can tell you bits about it, but they can't give you the whole picture. And we've no idea where we are. You know, we think we know we circle a star, but we don't know quite where that star is heading for. It too is moving, but you know, we know it's a galaxy, but there's thousands of them. And where does they head? You know, like our knowledge is very, very limited.
They're all moving too.
Hey?
Galaxies, they're all moving as well.
And they're all moving, yeah. And we go on as if, you know, science has proved beyond doubt.
Yes.
And so Bloom is just one of us, really. This is half facts, half knowledge, brilliant personal insights into possibilities all lumped together.
It's also, I think, a good cover for Joyce, because you can't put that many facts in a book and get them all right. And so when they're wrong, we can attribute it to Bloom.
Yeah. I tell years ago in Sweeney's, when I was on duty, the doors burst open, and a small group of Americans came in. Duncan, don't take this personally. They were from Texas, and
Not a problem.
the leader shouts over to me, "There's a mistake in Ulysses." I said, "Which one have you in mind?" And then he proceeded to tell me about the Ascot race not being a handicap. We're from Texas. We know about horses. You see, and kind of, sort of chatting for a while. They went on their way, telling all of Dublin there's a mistake in Ulysses. One mistake.
You straighten you Irishmen out.
Yeah, they sorted out. They went back where Ulysses run, put it right. That mission accomplished. I think there was a man years ago produced, and it managed to make headlines in the newspapers here, that produced a book which said there were 2,000 mistakes in Ulysses. And he got coverage for it. I think he hadn't seen the half of it.
But I agree with you. I mean, this is the human condition.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's an escape from it. It's not like it's going to be solved in 5 years or 550 years or whatever. It's just our condition, and we have such a strong desire to feel that we know where we are and what we're doing and all that kind of stuff that we'll cling to almost any piece of wood floating in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like Bloom, we seek to know, but we cannot know perfectly.
Yeah, we can never achieve perfection in anything.
No, that's right, in our knowledge. But the point is that if Bloom is every man or woman, it's because we're all seeking to know. We're all seeking to find answers to increase our base of understanding, and that's what he does.
Yeah.
Not very successfully, by the way. Which is, I think, in terms of the development here, we have the citizen, and the citizen knows his facts.
Yeah, that's.
And then we have Gertie, and Gertie, from her point of view, she knows her facts. She knows she's got her universe laid out.
Yeah.
Completely oblivious that all of her universe is borrowed.
Yeah.
The social media of the day, the advertisements and the romance books and all that kind of stuff.
That's right, and you can apply it to your earlier comparison to modern times. People who are sure of their facts, and have easy solutions for everything. There was a phrase there, in a cart, just 3 words like that, in a cart, and Bloom travels back, or Ulysses travels from the beach back to the town in the cart with Nausicaa. You see, so there's the cart, but famously she puts him out of the cart as they approach the town, because Nausicaa is very like Gertie in that marriage is always on her mind. It's only one thought away from marriage, everything she talks about. And then as they approach the gates of her father's city, she puts Ulysses out so that people won't mistake it for a relationship she's having with a man. It might ruin her marriage chances. You see, today could be the day when she's perfect.
Okay.
So Mr. Ordinary Ulysses gets put out of the cart and told how to find his own way to the palace.
Mhm. That's great. All righty. We are now 10 minutes. So, any last comments that anybody wants to make? I guess we'll call it a day, and we will
Okay.
resume our reading next Thursday here. And those who are coming for Merchant of Venice tomorrow, I'll see you then.
Okay.
Okay, good
Go
night,
on.
folks.
Bye-bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Figure out how to do this. I've still got. There we go.